Good morning, everybody. I would like to call this meeting to order. And the first order of business we have is the Pledge of Allegiance. You'll please join me. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next, we have approval of the agenda.
I make a motion that we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
The move and second, we approve the agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion is adopted. Action items for the board is we have COVID-19 operations after winter break and by our superintendent, Tom Robertson.
Yeah.
So we'll turn it over to him.
All right. Thank you, Chair Kelly. Also appreciate you coming in this morning for this discussion. I've got a real quick presentation of about 7 slides here and some data I'd like to look at together. Feel free to ask questions while we're doing this, or I can get through this and then you can start your discussion however you prefer. So really there's 3 topics of discussion today. One is looking at what school operation returning from winter break looks like in Lake Conroe School District. Another topic dealing with COVID is facility use from outside user groups, and then also IHSA extracurricular activities was a topic of discussion, which will be very little because there has been no movement from the governor on that. So really that will not be much of a topic, but I will give you a quick update. So mainly, let's just jump into school operations. And what I'm asking you to have a discussion with today is we are planned to start Lake Conroe School District resume school on January 4th. That would be next Monday, face-to-face as planned, 5 days a week, within our yellow plan as with the increased safety measures that we have put in place. Nothing changes. Or for preventative measures only, and I say that, remote learn for the week of January 4th through the 8th, and resume face-to-face learning on Monday, January 11th. There could be a few exceptions there, and I do put that in there, that a few of our schools, like the Homeschool Academy, doesn't really fit that bill, and they're going 2 days a week anyway with different groups of students, and so I just wanted to put that in there. With that discussion, and this is not an exhaustive list of pros and cons, you as a board all along have made a statement that the best place for student learning is at school with the teacher in their learning cohort. I fully agree with that. We understand the importance of getting back to school does not disrupt learning routines. Students have been out for 2 weeks for winter break. On the flip side of that, strategically talking about January 11th is 10 days, exactly 10 days, which is the CDC guideline as far as a quarantine after New Year's. Potential for less students needing to quarantine, because I know that has been an issue, and parents, it's very frustrating when just because of their seating arrangement or being deemed a close contact, have to sit out as a quarantine has been a frustrating situation for the families that had to do that. And we cannot predict what holiday gatherings have taken place and or travel and the impact that may have on schools, either people who have traveled in or people who have traveled out. In a perfect world, people would self-quarantine themselves on that situation, but those are just some things we do not know. If we went to remote learning, we would still continue food service the best that we can in our grab and go process. We know we wouldn't reach as many kids as if they were at school, but we would continue our services the best possible. Current data, I just want to throw that up, 7-day average per 100,000. If you have had a chance to look at this, this is Bonner County, and we are currently at 55.6. And remember that 30 was kind of the magic number. While this graph is up here, I would like to look at the county trends of what we have had. And again, if we all had a crystal ball here, it would be an easy decision, but we don't have a crystal ball. So what we do have is to look at data after 2 other holiday seasons. One would be Halloween, one would be Thanksgiving, and what would happen in our county. And then I also want to show you then what the numbers look like within our school district. So first of all, if I look and I find around October 31st, we were at 16.2, would be the 7-day average per 100,000. It would be somewhere at this point. And if we go to about November 14th into November 20th, you can see that we did have a spike or an increase after Halloween. Kind of settled in, but never did go all the way back down. Here we were at Thanksgiving at about 36.5, and since Thanksgiving we did peak 2 weeks later. Actually then we had a little dip right before we left for break. That's about 3 weeks. We were at 61.5, and we've continued to see a little spike there up to 89, and then back down to 56. So I think using this graph, we can see that yes, we have had spikes after those 2. Is it the gatherings? I don't know. Is it the weather? Could be. It could be people more inside. I mean, you know as much as I do on reasons there. So that's one set of data I think it's important for you to look at. The other is our data, and just to let you know, let's make this bigger for you. Okay, so this is Lake Pend Oreille school data as of when we ended break. We had 15 active cases, but I do want to remind you that in our November board meeting, we had 66 staff and students that were quarantined in our November board meeting. As of December 18th, we had 140 staff and students who were quarantined. That's just some more information for you. That did include 2 sports teams that we did put on a 10-day quarantine hiatus from any practice or competitions because of a positive within the program, and it was very difficult to determine exact close contacts or not, so we treated each program. So I want to give you the most accurate data I have. Of those 140, probably 30, 45 of them were probably involved in those activities. So that gives you a little bit of information there. Lonnie?
Tom, would all these be off by now? School
Yes. Yeah, as far as we know. Now, our nursing staff is not tracking during this week. So what we've asked is our families to send an email if they do test positive over the 2 days of winter break, and our nursing staff will work with them when they're going to have to go to their primary care physician, work with Penn Mental Health, and then our nursing staff will pick back up next Monday. Bonnie?
I think you answered I was going to say, do we have any data on test positivity of those 100 plus quarantine folks?
No.
Okay.
No, we don't. One thing I do want to share with you.
Tell me that number. It says 15.
That was
there
15 active.
at the end of school.
Correct.
Yeah.
The
December 19th.
December 19th.
Okay.
Yes. And 4 of those were at Sandpoint High School, and you could
Yeah,
see
you
that
can
the
see where they are,
spikes
yeah.
were at Sandpoint High School, Sandpoint Middle School, in the student population there. We were 4 active, and we had 2 at Farm and Stidwell.
Sure.
So And then to do a little comparison, and this is going to be a little harder to look at, but this is just the raw data we had. So if you were to go to Halloween, and this is LPOSD School District data, so from the beginning of the second week of school, we had 3 positives, 2 positives, 5 positives, 9/27 to 10/3. We had 1, 10/4 to 10/10. October 11th to October 17th, we did not have any. We had 1, 10/8 to 10/24. We had 2 tests positive, 10/25 up to Halloween. And then after Halloween, you can see we went, the week after was 2, then we had 11 and 7. So we did have a little bit of a spike there. So that is very similar to what the
You just have to move the bar.
it's going to let me do that. Let me scroll over. Might have to reduce it a little bit. This will be harder for you to see.
You can
I
read
can
it
read
out,
it to
yeah.
you. Make it a little bigger. So when we had, then we had 7 and 3 right around at that Thanksgiving week, and then coming back from Thanksgiving, we've had 14 positive cases, then 17 positive cases, and then the week right before we went to break was 10. So I would say that we did mirror somewhat what the county spikes were with these numbers of, 31, 41 positive cases 3 weeks after Thanksgiving.
Right.
Bonnie?
Are those new positive tests or active positive?
Those are new positives.
New positive tests.
Not the number that are active.
Gotcha.
The number of active, these were just the new positives that happened,
Yeah.
not the number that were active.
Okay, that's what I
Right.
thought.
So, yeah. So as we had a new active, or a new positive, our nursing staff would add that. So to say that we are completely different, are those numbers significant? Don't know. But they did show the spike following the county data, and it appears to be following those holiday gatherings.
I would also just like to add that looking at data, Bonner County right now is showing worse data than the statewide averages. And I realize that's taking a lot of different regional versus city data into consideration, but we are not doing better than the statewide average.
And you're referencing the 7-day average?
Yeah, the 7-day
Yeah.
rolling.
Yeah, I think the state was at 36
Yeah.
or something, we're at 56. So again, that's some data to look at, and that's really where I would like for you then to take over with discussion amongst yourselves. And I guess I would just, Chair Kelly, one thing is to emphasize is that this is not a reactive, on my opinion, this is not a reactive report. This is if we considered delaying coming back face-to-face, it would be a preventative measure only to allow 10 days to pass. And then again, nothing will substitute for parents who keep their kids home if they're not feeling well. If there's another positive in the household, please keep your kids home, and staff members. There is no substitute for any of that. If you have traveled out of the area, to self-quarantine yourself would be a responsible thing to do to help us keep our schools open, because we know that's the best place for kids. So, but thank you, and I'll turn it over to you, Chair Kelly.
Okay, well, I just had a couple of questions. The game plan, I don't really see what we gain by moving face-to-face down to the 11th. I realize as far as possible less quarantine because they have a few days there. But my question is, if on the 11th we have different data, would we change our plan then? I mean, it looks like if we go in and give more time, it seems to me somewhere in there we need to make a decision. Are we going back to face-to-face, or is the fact the situation has got so much worse, we need to stay and
I wouldn't.
at least make different.
I'm not prepared at this time to answer that question. I know as of today, what I'm bringing to you is not a long-term closure of remote
Right.
learning, a long-term remote. That would be reactive. And as we've stated in our previous plans, that if there was a stay-at-home order, if there was something that came either locally and/or from the state as a stay-at-home order, that may change our mind. But still, the level of education cannot be duplicated of what students have there. So anyway, I just,
We're talking about preventive measures. What exactly are we preventing?
I think
The amount of possible
the length
quarantine
of time that people may be testing positive from the activity that happened after a holiday, using what we saw from Thanksgiving and Halloween. And again, that's a predictive model. We could be way off base, and those trends could continue to fall off, and we may miss the mark. Or we may see the same thing happen after holidays of that coming up. And it's just something that I think is important for us to talk about.
Yes, Chairman.
I do want to say that I have heard, and probably you other trustees have also heard from a few people in the community, constituents, employees, parents, a few in favor of delaying for a week just to allow that 10-day period, so that if somebody is going to have symptoms, it emerges and they don't bring it to school. They have the opportunity to see those symptoms emerge and they stay home, allowing, if the spike does happen, it's going to happen in the community regardless of what's happening in the schools. But it would prevent maybe it happening in the schools specifically. I've heard that feeling. I've also heard from one student and parents who do want to stay in school. They want the opportunity to be at school.
I have, my inbox and voicemail has been filled up with people not wanting to delay. I haven't had a single person say, yeah, I think it's a good idea to delay. I've had a lot of people reach out and say, we need to go to school. And I guess my question would be, there's more and more education about this now, so can we hope or assume or trust in our patrons that if somebody's not feeling well this week after Christmas time, which we're in right now, that they would either go get tested or quarantine?
Yeah.
That's the other thing that I think we have to at least.
I think it's that symptoms may not have appeared yet.
Yeah, but yeah, it's certainly possible that if you were exposed on Christmas because you had a contact, that
Hopefully by the 4th, the Christmas spike would already be showing.
Will have already happened.
Maybe not the New Year's. Yeah.
And yeah, granted, if people go out and party it up on New Year's and get exposed, we don't know what's going to happen. We have no idea. But from a logistics standpoint of getting kids back to school, which brings some normalcy back to a routine for parents and families, delaying that can be really costly and very difficult to deal with. Not everybody has the ability to be with their, A lot of people have taken all their vacation in this 2 weeks, and they don't have that option. And is there? I don't disagree with the fact that yes, it would be safe if we could stay out another week and just wait and see what happens. However, I think that it would be more difficult. The burden on families and the community could be. I just don't know if it's warranted. I guess. The danger of it.
So from an educational standpoint, I have some doubts about the effectiveness of going from Christmas break straight into online learning. I feel like it would be a complete wash, but can you speak to that, Tom, a little bit about what possibilities are out there for families? Because
Right.
if we're just talking educationally,
If we're just talking education, I said at the beginning, there is no substitute for being in that cohort of learners in the classroom. There are some families who do a remarkable job with online, don't get me wrong there, but for most families, I've heard over and over, it's a very difficult endeavor to duplicate that. So I do not want to say or anybody to think that the level of instruction and education would be equal. So with that said, there's lots of things through the learning management system, through being creative, through communicating with families that we would do the very best that we could during that week, which could be not scheduling a Zoom meeting every day, but maybe 2 meetings for that week. Something reasonable to still stay connected with those kids. The other option that I've had presented to me is, well, why would we do remote learning? Why don't we just extend winter break? Well, I'm concerned about that in the sense that we have 5 emergency closure days built into our calendar. Those are usually reserved for snow days and inclement weather, cold weather, freezing rain, and then there is an additional 11 hours that the state would give us some grace. But for us to say, okay, we're going to do a 5-day emergency closure, I would not be a proponent of that, not knowing what the rest of the winter would come and where we would need that, and then that may be adjusting the calendar to make up that time. So to say just to do emergency closure and not bring employees back to work would not be my recommendation.
okay.
Well, I feel we need to stay the course. I don't see we have enough information. We're speculating on what may happen and all this, but I think we don't have enough information to change the course that we're on. And the parents and everybody else is depending on that. And once we start changing things, it comes out in the news, it comes out in the press, all this kind of thing. And I'm for just staying the course, as you said. Face-to-face is the best way to learn, and I don't see there's enough evidence that we need to change it.
And I also think that we have the mechanism in place for those constituents that don't feel safe, or maybe, they did have some travel over the holiday. They can stay home. I mean, we've prepared for that. There's learning management system and online capability that if you think, yeah, I don't want to put my kid in school that week, let's leave that, in my opinion, let's leave that decision to the parents and say, let them wait and see, rather than us say, everybody wait and see.
And I am encouraged by the fact that the Christmas spike will already have emerged by January 4th, which impacts most of our kids.
I think that we look at Christmas, this entire holiday season, you're much more likely, in my opinion, to have external contact and exposure during Christmas because people are getting together. However, I would venture to guess that everybody in this room didn't have a normal Christmas. I know I didn't.
No.
We were not hanging out with a bunch of families from all over the place. And I think that's pretty ubiquitous. Now, granted, there's people where nothing changed, and there's a lot of good families around here that I'm sure nothing changed. However, New Year's isn't quite the holiday where you get together and everybody's rubbing shoulders like Christmas is, I don't think.
I don't think it is this year.
Yeah.
I think it's,
Well, not for our students, we
Not for
hope.
students, you know.
but I'd like to
Yeah.
add this about the Christmas portion of it. That week before Christmas, if you went shopping, the stores were packed with people.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's where the
Despite-
majority of the contacts, I think, is gonna come from that.
yeah.
I mean,
We
you
will
couldn't
see the
find a place
spike
to
again.
park at Walmart, over at Home Depot, North 40, they were packed.
Now, Gary, do you have any comments?
Yes, I acknowledge that we're having a spike in our community, and we're even having a spike in our school district. But I do not believe it's significant enough to change our plan. I support our plan. We have a flexible plan. We've already made a couple adjustments to our plan. Our infection rate in our school district is lower than surrounding school districts. Coeur d'Alene, Lakeland, are much higher than us. They've affirmed that they're going with in-person learning after the holidays. Spokane School District, which has been distance learning the entire year, is going back to in-person learning after the holidays. Their community, is much higher than us. So, in spite of the fact that community rates are raising, even our school district is raising a little bit, I don't think it's significant enough to change our plan. I think the infection rates in the school district are lower than the community. So I think we could make the argument that we are actually, protecting our students by keeping them in school. We're the only school district I know of that requires masks. So we have a stricter protocol than our surrounding school districts, and I think it's paid dividends for us. I applaud, our administration for coming up with the plan that we approved, and I see no reason to change it. These numbers, although they're to be noted, are not significant enough in my mind to change our plan.
If I could just bring up that the attendance at secondary schools, especially Sandpoint High School and Sandpoint Middle School, were significantly, I say the number of students that were not present was significantly increased the week prior going into Christmas, which was not the case at the elementary schools. The elementary schools did not see much of a decrease other than the students who had been a close contact. I can tell you with conversation in other school districts, when they hit a certain percent of students not in attendance
right.
is when they may go remote learning for that specific school. But again, we are flexible with our option of families choosing to remote learn anyway. And I do want to make a note that I do have a level of concern, even though I appreciate all your input, to be thinking about our bus drivers and our staff and our personnel, our adult personnel that are working in with students.
Well, I agree with you, Tom, and you said, from the onset here, that if we have to change our schedule, it's not going to be because of the students, it's going to be because of the staff. And you also sent us a survey taken amongst your bus drivers, who are perhaps the most vulnerable staff we have, and they overwhelmingly, supported our plan.
Okay.
But still something to keep an eye on there.
You've addressed one issue, though. In that first week back, assuming we go with leaving schools open, we're going to find out what families are doing. They may be protecting their own selves, or they may realize they have a student they're not sure of sickness-wise or exposure-wise. So we may see increased numbers of students staying home and have that conversation after we know.
Yeah, we meet on the 12th, so, we may have some more data and see if there's anything that needs to be changed at that time.
I do ask, and again, I know we're in a public meeting here, so I do ask again, if there is no action taken by the board, that families who have traveled significantly outside of the area or have had people come from outside of the area, please be very precautious, not just for yourselves, but for the other students and staff who are in our school district, because we really want to keep our schools open, and that is really the cooperation by all. And what we've seen is very good. We appreciate the cooperation we've seen. I mean, it's been great, but it only takes one. And I want to just say the one scenario is that if there is a person in your household that is pending testing, they went and got tested and are pending their results, keep the students home until you get those results.
Yeah.
Because the few cases that we know is that we were pending the results, kids kept going to school, the result came back positive, and what we're seeing is that if there's a positive in the household, it's more likely that other people in the household will also test positive. And that is just data that we've received from our nursing staff. So again, it does take cooperation by all for us to continue to keep.
So
Yes.
on a side note here, I just like to note, my daughter happens to be a fourth-year medical student at the University of Washington School of Medicine. And she just recently completed an infectious disease class, current, about this pandemic, from a professor who's perhaps the leading expert in this field. And Idaho, is, the conclusion is that Idaho is really not doing a very good job of managing this pandemic. We're not requiring masks in our communities. We're not doing enough to discourage gathering and traveling. We're not social distancing enough. But the biggest thing we're not doing in Idaho is testing. Our test rate is just minuscule compared to other more developed states. So this has a significant effect on our data. Number one, we're not picking up the number of cases because there's a lot of people that are positive but are asymptomatic and are not getting tested. Therefore, we're not getting that case count in our data. And the other thing it's doing to our data is it's raising our positivity rate.
Yes, it is.
Because we're only testing, the most vulnerable people and the people that are symptomatic.
Yeah.
So our positivity rate, is much higher than our general population. And our overall infection rate, is much lower than our population. So, in a school district, we're actually, a much more responsible protocol than our community. We are requiring masking. We are washing our hands and social distancing, and discouraging students who aren't feeling well from coming to school. Therefore, I think schools are actually a safe place to be right now.
Okay, thank you. I think we'll move on to the next item. It looks like on this one, we're going to leave things as we are. I think that's the consensus on it here.
Just wanted to bring this to your attention, and you can just give me some guidance on this. When we talk about social emotional learning through this pandemic, one of the most important things is for kids to stay active. So we have followed protocols and followed the stage orders, but we have allowed outside user groups to use school facilities as long as they follow the guidelines and they submit a full plan, and that has been going very well. It has come to my attention that is not the case in every community where the facilities are available. So we're now starting to get some pressure, or we are bringing people from outside of our community who want to use our facilities. And I don't, I'm at this point where I'm at least bringing the board aware of this. You can tell me to handle it as an executive, or you can weigh in on it. Also, I feel that at least through the month of January that we keep our facilities open for our youth and our groups, but what we limit it for outside our community to come use our facilities, a little bit of a concern of saying is the more we use it, the more we need to put a custodial personnel for making sure that we are cleaning our facilities after each user group. So it is putting a little bit of a financial strain or flexing hours of our maintenance department, as well as, I think it may just be the responsible thing. The idea is not to have a full-blown programs out there, but to give kids something to do, but keep it within our community. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
I'm in support of what you just outlined for us, that we keep it open for our youth and our community programs and activities, but limit it to outside our community.
And I-
Limit that usage.
I
Don't
think
allow that
sounds-
use.
Sounds reasonable.
I don't think that,
Yeah.
I know that we're seeing an influx of people from the surrounding areas because they can't get into their gyms.
Yeah, I know.
However, we don't want somebody from outside coming in causing a problem that's gonna close them for us.
Right.
I agree.
And I'm not.
Or overuse our budget.
Right. And I'm saying this is, I just think I wanted to make the board aware of that. I will be glad if you felt that that would just be something you want the superintendent to handle, that's fine.
I would like that.
You know, I would like for the superintendent to handle it, but we are, you know, a public institution, you know, and we need to try and keep our facilities open to the public. I mean, I personally don't have a problem with an out of the area group using our facilities as long as they go by our rules and they don't interfere, you know, with our activities.
I guess to me, it would be if we continue practices or scrimmages within our community, but we don't try to host tournaments during the month of January. Let's just see where things go, and then we can be flexible.
I think you need to determine it on a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
Because there may be some outside activity that would be the exception. I think you need the flexibility to do that.
Okay.
And also, if that were the case, you could require them to do the cleaning. That could be part of the contract to use. They
Right.
clean the place, sanitize it.
Just
whatever
the
it is.
quality control on that would
Exactly,
be a
you don't
little
have
bit
any
concerning.
control then.
But you still need supervision.
Right.
I'm in favor of limiting outside use, but for the month of January
I
and
got
seeing.
a question on outside use.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not familiar with the fee structure of using our facilities, but is there a fee structure in place if you're using our facilities that it makes the burden to the custodial staff a wash? Does it cover it or not?
We have not changed our fee structures. That's probably another board action sometime soon.
It's not covering it.
We've been very lenient on not charging a lot for our facilities.
Well, we also hired some extra custodians.
That's true.
And got some grant monies to help with
Yep.
those expenses.
Right. And I gotta give kudos to Matt Deal. He's doing a very good job of managing his personnel in
And
that
maybe when
sense.
we relook the fee structure, we could do it as a tiered, so that those organizations within our district would be paying less,
Yeah.
because they're already paying the taxes for
Right.
that facility.
Right,
For the ones coming from outside our district
right.
are not paying the taxes for that facility, so they have to pay a higher usage.
Well, they are, We're
Well,
supported primarily
Tom, I
by
think
the
we can
state.
say as a
Okay.
as a
Okay,
general
so-
policy, we agree
Taxes.
with that, as you stated initially.
And the last thing I had is I sent to you a draft that was drafted by the Idaho High School Activity Association that was sent to Governor
Yeah.
Little, basically asking to amend the stage 2 where there is no more than 10 people in, and it was multi-tiered. If the governor acts on that and approves that, it will require an assurance by the school board that we will adhere to that. And at this point in time, I was hoping to have something for you, but I do not believe, I have not received any word that the governor has acted on that. So we are still following our stage 2 order for our activities, in the sense that we will be just limiting it to only 10 into the gym, outside the essential workers.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, if there's no further business, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you all.